Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So as you can tell by today's video, we will be talking about a potential for a growing potential, a quickly growing potential I should add, for a large winter storm somewhere towards the end of this week across the United States and southern Canada. Now, I obviously forecast for a large area of really most of the United States and a good portion of southern Canada. So again, this won't be impacting necessarily your area with that snow or rain at all. I mean, it could completely miss you depending on where you live. So stay tuned and I will tell you where exactly the snow threat may be. Again, it's still pretty unconfident. The storm system has many different solutions depending on which model you look at, and we will have to wait and see kind of which one is more right. But there's a heavy snow threat, heavy rain threat, and some severe weather maybe even. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about in terms of that. There's also a very active pattern following this storm system as we head into December, which I think will be definitely well warranted to watch for. So I do think that is definitely going to be a talking point in future videos. But before we get into today's video, I do want to say that if you guys are new to this channel, hello and welcome. I talk about the weather. That's what I do. I like it. I'm an enthusiast. And if you like this video, consider checking out more of the videos on this channel. Consider subscribing to the channel. Consider liking the video. And obviously don't do that just because I told you so. Do it if you actually want to, and I'm just reminding you at the beginning of the video. Alright, thank you guys, and let's start talking about this potential winter storm. So, first off, I want to show you the GFS model, and this is not the GFS model, this is the GFS model. And I'll run through it quickly, and you'll probably notice that if you live across the Midwest, the Great Lakes, you've been seeing some snow. My area in particular, Chicago, Northern Illinois, has not been seeing any snow, but to the north there has been, and it's actually been pretty decent. Detroit saw around 3 to 4 inches from that little clipper system. I shouldn't call it really little. It overperformed in some areas, as often sometimes clippers do or do not. They're pretty hard to forecast, in other words. And through the rest of this week, that storm system won't be occurring, but the clippers will. Notice we have one tomorrow into Tuesday. We have another one on Wednesday, Thursday. Here's a time slot, by the way. It's a bit small, I know, but if I zoom in a bit more, we start losing it completely, and I can't show you the whole map. So this is pretty much the closest I could zoom in, and you can see it's the kind of 6-hour intervals, 12:06, 12:06 p.m. and a.m. Respectively, and it's the given date. And there's also a tiny slot right here, but again, that is very, very small. So notice that. Let's see what this model does again. Let me rewind this and show you. Clipper after clipper. This is tomorrow, Tuesday, or this is now Wednesday, this is now Thursday. You can see just these little clippers, and some of them do have a threat of turning into more of a potential nor'easter or a bigger system as they interact with the moisture. But you can see that if it does, it will bring snow to southern Canadian cities and inland Northeast. Most likely not, say, New York City or Boston or Philadelphia or other coastline cities like maybe even Bangor or Portland across Maine. So as I push this forward, we continue seeing that, again, you can see those systems definitely have a threat for developing, but no big systems. And you may be saying, okay, well, where is this? Again, it's still pretty far out. This is now Saturday, so almost a full week out. But look what starts happening. We start seeing a lot of warm air push into the rest of the United States. A lot of, states like Iowa, Nebraska, Illinois, seeing very, very warm air. And quite in fact, it could be actually warm for many of these states during the whole week. You can see, again, it depends. There will be some bits of air out ahead of these individual clippers that will be warmer. Behind it will be a bit cooler. It's very hard to forecast even day-to-day basis on these clippers, let alone several days out, which is why clippers are very kind of, I guess, nuisances, because they're hard to forecast and they can be pretty darn impactful even though they are small. And you can see that, say, Illinois, Iowa, they teeter with that blue and red line in a lot of these states for several days back and forth between, out ahead of that large system next weekend. You can see on Saturday and Sunday we see a large area of snow start to develop across the Northwest. Again, most likely around the time of next Saturday into Sunday. So still pretty far out, but the models have been darn consistent with showing a system of some kind, a bit weaker or stronger depending on which day or which model you look at. And which day, I mean not out in the forecast, but which day the models currently run on. Some days they show a stronger system, other days they do not. Right? And notice a lot of warm air out ahead of that, right? Obviously, there's rain before you can see Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Kentucky, Indiana, into potentially Iowa, Illinois. Maybe again, some models show snow for those areas. The GFS shows rain and shows the snow across really much of North Dakota. There are portions of, as you can see right there, into Montana, Minnesota, Wisconsin, the UP. And this does develop into a very, very large system. Lots of rain for the Northeast and the Great Lakes region, Detroit, where that snow fell. You're going to be rain, so again, it's probably not going to stick around for a while. The UP really getting hammered by this system. Where you can see this is this December 5th, 6 p.m. This is now into late Sunday and into early Monday at this point, this time frame. You can see some of those yellow colors across the south. That is potentially some either heavy rain or some severe weather, which is definitely something to watch for. We do see a bit of cold air catch up to that massive cold front behind this system, according to this GFS model, and that will transition some of that snow back to, some of that rain back to snow, and you could see that brings a bit of snow for the upper New England area. But yes, it's a massive system that does develop with a bit of cold air, which sets us up for the second system. Again, an active pattern. Right? I do want to just talk about this system in particular because I want to show you other models and what they show very differently, say, from the GFS. But look what the GFS shows with that second system. We're just 2 to 3 days behind it. We see that area of snow in a very similar fashion start developing, but more across Wyoming, into South Dakota, and into portions of, Nevada, Utah. So just more further to the south. And what does that mean? Well, more access to the Gulf. It strengthens quicker. A lot more snow to the south. You could see this time across Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, into Kansas, Colorado, Arizona, potentially. You're even seeing some snow depending on which model you look at with the second system. And boom, that's a pretty strong system. And we continue to see activity. You can see a third one starts developing, and moisture. You can see the GFS's latest model shows a lot across the southwest in terms of that moisture, so that would be some good news. But again, it differs model by model, or even sometimes between the model itself, between its own individual model runs. So let's just take a look at the snowfall from this first system. It will be kind of hard to show you the first snow by itself, the first snowstorm, because you can see while it's still occurring out here across the east, we start seeing the impacts of that second system. So let me just go region by region. So first off, the first storm will drop this much snow across the northwest according to the GFS at this given time, which definitely, by the way, will change. It's just trying to show you that it shows a system. You can see it really favors it towards more of the northern United States, where it drops almost a foot of snow across the Dakotas, really mainly North Dakota, Minnesota, and into Wisconsin. Notice that across the northeast, it really does blow up, especially across southeastern Canada. It does show some snow across the northeast United States, but that again, if this scenario would to come true, this would be mainly a rain kind of occurrence, but a lot of snow for Green Bay, Marquette, Sault Ste. Marie, right? Quebec seeing potentially over a foot from that storm. Obviously, some of that would be falling from some of those clippers that will be bombarding that general area this upcoming week. But yeah, once that system comes, we do have that second storm and a third one. The pattern changes. It doesn't go from, it kind of changes from big storms or from little tiny clippers to big systems, which we haven't really be seeing much of so far this year. So that's just one model. I do want to show you the Canadian, and before I show you the snowfall, let me just time it out for you guys so you can show how it kind of differently evolves the actual system. So let's play this forward. Notice this week we do have a weak northwest flow. Pretty powerful northwest flow with those weak clippers. Again, one after the other. Some of them being quite stronger. But as the GFS show, the Canadian also shows a large area of precip developing across the United States and southern Canada. You can see it's a bit more further towards the south or north initially than the GFS, but generally still in agreement with that similar timing of next weekend, Saturday into Sunday. Again, brings snow across Minnesota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, Michigan, very similar areas. What it doesn't do, though, it doesn't develop as robust of a cold front, kind of stretching into the deep south. It's more across the Ohio Valley, and that allows for the system to not get pushed way up towards the north as violently as the GFS did, but it brings more snow into, say, Michigan, into Wisconsin, into the northeast, Vermont. You can see it eventually does bring a lot of rain towards the coastal areas, but it's much further towards the south. Still, a very impactful system with a lot of lake effect and a lot of cold air behind it. The pattern is completely changed at this point, and we do have a setup for additional storms, which you can see the Canadian also starts showing. So the Canadian total snowfall is impressive, as you might have seen at the beginning. I showed you a little snapshot. So boom, right there. Look at all that snow across North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, right? Again, the Northeast picking up a lot more snow if this scenario were to come true. New York State, maybe even New York City picking up some snow. Again, you can see not much, right? Much of Michigan, both the mainland and the UP, the Mitten as I like to call it, and Maine, southern Canada, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec, all of those cities picking up lots of snow. The Northwest, but you can see the Southwest not picking up a lot, and they're really the South not picking up much either. And you can see that little snow right there is from that second system that the Canadians start to develop, which is kind of separate. But you can see a lot of people could be getting in on this activity from this pattern. And just because you get missed by this storm, the second one may bring us snow to your area. So we'll have to keep watching on these, these systems and how they develop and how they evolve. I could show you the totals precip. I didn't show you this with the GFS, but I will with the Canadian because why not? And you can see quite a bit of rain could be falling across kind of Kentucky, the South, Ohio, Indiana. Again, starting from the Mid-South, really it's not the Mid-South, more the Mid-Atlantic, east, extreme west Mid-Atlantic, the Ohio Valley is more appropriate to say, into the South, the Deep South, and into portions of even Mexico. And then again, that northwest flow is going to be evident for the first part of the week, first part of this forecast range, but towards the end it does start getting more changed, and we start seeing a pattern more conducive towards large systems. Now these are just two models. I will show you one more, the European, and again it's consistent with the rest. It's another model. It goes out to 240 hours. You can see weak clippers most of this week, one after the other, some of them becoming more intense than others. Like that would bring potentially several inches, if not close to half a foot of snow for cities like Quebec, which is a large city in Canada, in case you did not know. And you can see more clippers and more, some of them again trying to develop into something bigger, but that seems pretty kind of not that likely, but again it's possible, as it is still pretty far out with these clippers. And honestly, a clipper could change into a more serious scenario way quicker than a large system, which you kind of look at the hurricane. It could intensify if it's smaller much quicker than say a large massive beast, or change directions and change its impacts much quicker. Right, a large system not so much. This is why I'm not forecasting for a specific area with the European or the GFS or the Canadian for this storm. I'm just trying to show you that the models are showing it. Now this is the European, and notice something different, right? There's that system that the Canadian and GFS both show developing pretty strongly. While the European, it doesn't do that. It doesn't develop into a winter storm, which is interesting. What it does do, it kind of sends it across the Northeast. It does develop a bit of snow right there. But what it does do that the other models don't do, see, the Canadian and GFS both develop a second system, right, which the European is doing, but they develop it much later as a result of this system kind of being slower, right, and being a lot more stronger. The European kind of treats us as a little passing by clipper, a bit, obviously a strong one, and it kind of zooms out of here, but this big one comes in right after it and kind of takes the place of that big storm. So you can see, even if this scenario were to come true, it does bring, again, we could see something, let alone from this first one from the European, which does show some promising signs, potentially, if you want that snow. But then look what it shows for that second one. It shows a lot of snow for the northern plains, the northwest, a lot of rain starting to develop, a lot of even freezing rain. That's a very powerful cold front, and it definitely an interesting take on that system. So it shows activity, just not necessarily in the same fashion that the GFS and Canadian show, and actually quite a bit off, because again, as I was saying, the Canadian starts showing that second system only once you get towards the 240 hour time frame, really in the last two slots right there, right? And the European at this point is showing this same exact one, or what would be the second one according to the European, but way out here already. So it's quite a bit off with that timing, and again, that's what happens, and that's why these forecasts are going to change, right? It's going to either lean in the Europeans' favor or the Canadians and GFS. At this point, I would say either are as likely, but the message stays the same, that potential for a large winter storm of some kind is growing. And you can see this is what the GFS shows at the same time the European shows its system. It's a second one, but it's different, and it's honestly originating from a different low pressure. This is the first one that the European ignores, and the Canadian GFS both show. We'll have to see which one wins. They both had honestly equal amount of support from their ensembles. I could show you them, but I want to keep this video relatively shorter. The European, there are quite a bit of models that show something like this, but there are still in its own ensemble some that support the GFS and Canadian developing a system out of this one. And there are quite a few models that do support obviously the GFS and Canadian with its within its own ensemble, showing a big storm out of that first one. And there are still quite a few though, or not quite a few, but some that really kind of disagree with the GFS, but also disagree with the Europeans showing their own thing. And again, that's kind of like that, the variance between the models, and we'll have to wait and see whether or not it kind of shortens down and I guess concentrates on one particular scenario as we go towards a week. But either one, I mean, you can see this one's impactful, this one's impactful, even the European, this one would be impactful. It's a large system. And we'll have to watch what it does with the next model run for that one. I'm actually curious to see what it did with in the midnight, and what it did with that system, whether or not it's been trend away from the GFS or towards it. So that's a Clipper. This is the one we're curious about. So you can see during the midnight it also developed a much weaker scenario from that first one and didn't really do much with it, but it did develop a second one that it's really pretty consistent with its model run from today and today, right, at noon and today at midnight. How about the one from yesterday? I'm curious, because there's that Clipper, you can see pretty strong. There's that system right there. Okay, so it seemed as if yesterday it was in more agreement with the GFS and Canadian, and today it just kind of went on its own little endeavor. But we'll have to see, because again, two models agreeing on one system is a bit more, gives me a bit more confidence than say one just doing its own thing like the European. But the European is a good model, so I can't just disregard that. But you can see this is the GFS from today at midnight, which is almost 3 model runs ago. And you can still see it showed that system very similarly to what it's doing now, just a bit further towards the south at midnight. How about the 27th of Saturday? Now at this point I'd be surprised if it showed that system in the same fashion. Okay, yeah, it did still show a storm though, and you can see it was more across the northeast. So at this point I'm just kind of checking out, which one did more change. The European at this point was a bit more lost and showed much more of a different scenario. So it does a bit more jumping around, which means it's kind of, not really confident if it goes from one scenario to another. While the GFS has its foot kind of firmly placed on one given thing, just slightly adjusting its track and your kind of speed and intensity. So we'll have to see, but regardless, I mean, look at this one from yesterday. Just boom, pattern, active pattern, right? And look at all that mush across the southwest. That's an also thing that I've been noticing. Some models, like the GFS yesterday at midnight, or 2 days ago midnight, you can see showed decent precip across the southwest. And then there's some, like today, that's continued to support that. And you can see that there's several systems bringing some rain towards the southwest. And then there's some, like today at noon, which I'm fairly sure did not support that rain. Well, no, this one did actually. No, this one was extremely active one. Sorry. This one was the one you could see. I mean, showed like 3 individual systems hitting that. How about in the morning? Let's see. Yeah, I mean, you could see it didn't really show any, not a single one. So it went from 0 systems hitting the southwest to all 3. And again, that's not really connected to our individual storm we're talking about. Though, again, it just goes to show you how active the pattern is and how changeable it is. It's all active, it's just different variations and different levels and different forms of activity. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see, guys. But for now, that's basically it. All I wanted to cover. Again, it's a growing threat, I would say. And in terms of temperatures, if you're wondering, the pattern does support a warmer pattern for generally the southern, kind of southwestern third of the United States, and you can see that that is indicated by the orange color as I put this forward. And again, the further out we get into time, it gets a bit more confusing. These are ensembles, by the way. It's not one particular model. And 5-day temperature anomalies, you can see more of a warmer potentially pattern. But again, that's hard to say if that will verify. And even if it is warm, you can see that there are several models that showed snowstorms, so I don't think that's really much of a concern. I'd rather take snow and kind of moderate temperatures than a lot of cold and no snow. First of all, because I like gardening, right? The plants need snow if they're gonna get blasted by cold air. But also, snow is way more funner than cold air, in my opinion. But again, I guess that's not talking about fun here, but rather what's more important. And yeah, you can see the GEPS, also GEPS show a warmer scenario. The European ensembles a bit more, I guess, aggressive with the cold air at some instances. But again, it depends. If we have a large, singular snowstorm like we saw with some of those model runs, one large system is enough to drag in a lot of cold air behind it, and that's all it will take. All right, that's basically for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you all in the next episode. See ya.